Okay, we are live after some audio issues. I think everybody's audio is working now. We can continue the discussion, Spencer, or I can show some diagrams which I had in the thread.
So, Anurag, let me just update you. It was a cable problem. When I
Yeah.
connected a different cable, it now recognizes a COM port 4 when I plug in the um, robot.
Okay. So that's good. So basically, I think like after Spencer's, after we could try to debug your Tumblr today and try to get
Yeah.
at least prog- programmed. Uh, Let me share the screen. So this is the kind of diagram I tried to draw, or at least tried to draw with Claude, how the split would look like. So basically, all the protocol work, the core protocol repos, would be called the YaRG robot protocols, and I would move them to the Protocol Institute, a new org. So that means the MCP gateway, the marketplace, and the protocol docs repo. I would move them to a new repo and rename the uh, YaRG rover protocols as YaRG robot. And then basically the YaRG rover becomes a specific project that uses the protocols, the YaRG robot protocols, and then it's under YaRG. And then like we won't be, it's the PIDRG is mostly purely protocol related work and some integration to different kinds of robots. So like we won't be discussing like self balancing, how to self balance robots in that group. It's mostly related to like how the robots are coordinating or the marketplace, and different, it can have different verticals, but it's mostly related to the protocols and the robotics related. So like if somebody wants to do elder care robots, it would be here, or somebody wants to do IoT related stuff, it would be here. And yeah, so hardware related, power electronics, solar charger, all that would be here, and the protocol work would be there. That was my idea, but any comments, opinions?
So right now, yakrover.com points to the marketplace, right? The
Y-
yakrobot.bid. You guys have
Yeah, so
created a mess of domains there.
yeah, so some redirections needs to be done. But like at least the basic separation is done, and then I have to redirect it here and there. But that's just Cloudflare configurations now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is pretty clean separation. So yeah, now we can I don't know, start more speculative lines of research in the garage part again. It's actually kind of good because if you look at things like Willow Garage, similar structure was there, right? Willow Garage did projects, some of which became more commercial and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of. Oh, I'm still back. Am I backstage? Maybe not. No.
Uh, no,
I can
you
hear
are
you.
on.
No, I'm good. Okay, okay. I was gonna say one of the things that that I like about the split is that kind of the distributed robotics, so like the weaving between robots, I feel like sits really well with Protocol Institute, but then kind of like messing around with robots and like new forms of connections, like sits really well with the Yak robotics. So like then yeah, yeah, I feel like the Yak robotics or Yak robot sits upstream from Protocol Institute in some ways.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, so a lot of the crypto work actually would be there, the pure crypto work. Basically, like I have to clean up the repos now. The repos I've also kind of mixed up with Rafa's work, my work, and then the gateway is also kind of mixed up now. So we have to clean up that repo. I'll start doing that in the next few weeks, because it's right now really hard to get somebody on chain. I think like people already have to struggle with the hardware and software, and then the crypto rails is also not that easy to get on, it seems. Like if somebody is coming completely new to the stack, it's a challenge.
So if you didn't have crypto rails, what would the rails be? Would it be something like MPP or something else?
So basically, you remember the front end I made in through which you logged in once via Privy
Oh yeah, so that's still crypto rails, except it's you're using Stripe's wrapper around it,
Stripes
right?
infrastructure. Yeah, so you need some rails to get on, because if you are using your own wallets, well, like most people wouldn't even bother, I think, to create. They don't care. So it's like if you are doing it behind with some rails, then it's like exciting for them. But like so behind the infrastructure is decentralized, but like you need some rails to get there.
Yeah, and just a note on that, like using Privy and other services, like a user, even the marketplace registration right now from an external, the way I structured it, you don't need crypto at all. You can just trust the platform to manage the registration, and kind of like your identity. Um, but there's still work to do to kind of like by default allow like email control of that identity, or use a different type of like wrapper for it. But right now, technically, a robot fleet can trust the marketplace to serve as the intermediary party to manage the rails.
Yeah, but the protocol should be designed so that it's not dependent on like one platform.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can think about the marketplace as like one potential hub.
Yeah.
So like there should be many marketplaces for many different requirements and interests. At least that's what I would say.
Yeah. So basically, like not everybody would be wanting to, let's say, example on the construction marketplace, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the marketplace framework serves as a bit of a meta fleet, which is like, some robots will be registered through there, but then some robots may be like, based on the maturity of the robot fleet owner, is whether they'll like work directly inside the protocol, or they'll go through a marketplace, or they'll do something else, or they'll register with multiple marketplaces, right? Because nothing is stopping a robot from having multiple identities,
Yeah.
What?
which is likely one of the potential outcomes that happen.
Yeah. And like basically, if you know the stack well enough, you could just skip the marketplace by
That's
if you
right.
want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the construction phase. Is that just as it sounds, like construction
Oh,
robots?
yeah. So my current interest and the use case that I'm currently exploring is robots used for construction, because I was kind of thinking that if I'm going to go to the moon or Mars, then the stepwise function is figuring out how autonomous robots are being used for construction.
Hmm.
Um, and and then yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. And I have a bunch of family connections in construction too, so I've been interviewing them and learning about how that industry is working and where they are with robots. The
Hmm.
short answer is that a lot of the infrastructure construction, like for example roads, are actually not using drones. They're using cars,
Yeah.
um, which was kind of interesting. But autonomous cars would all like are also robots in a sense. But That's some of the stuff that I've learned. I have a lot more, but just roughly the construction question is like, oh, if we're going to the moon, can I figure out how construction robots are being sorted? What level of autonomy? How are they architected? Um, what's the industry supply chain?
Hmm.
So on.
Okay, cool.
Any more comments or opinions? Otherwise, we move on to Spencer's topic. Okay, maybe we can check what Spencer has been building.
Yeah, I don't know if it was last week or the week before now, but I was able to meet with Venkat in Seattle, and he passed off custody of his Tumblr rover to me, so I can do some tinkering with it until my board and parts and stuff start coming in. Um, Basically, I just got it flashed with whatever the latest firmware is in the GitHub repo, and also started moving wheels, just simple like forward, backward, turn, stop kind of stuff. And I mean, everything has worked so far. So um, I don't know if do you recommend, is there any like intermediate bring up or testing before I just go into like self-balancing stuff? You're muted, by the way.
So, have you tried moving it with the gateway itself? So just
No.
try. So run the gateway, and then so you can just run the robots locally uh, with your cloud locally on your network.
Okay. That you're talking about getting the MCP
Yeah, the gateway
gateway.
running on your local computer, and then you can fire up a cloud on the same computer, and then connect to the or on your phone, and then since you're on the same network, could just have like the MCP server running locally and try to command it from there. So that is one test.
Okay. So then the
But yeah,
next kind of
uh,
high priority things are
would
the.
be self-balancing. Oh, yeah. So for self-balancing, yeah, it needs to be ported. I had started that work maybe 6 months ago. It's still sitting on a branch, not complete. Or maybe like you could start fresh. Rafa was also trying to get the self-balancing working. But yeah, so for I don't have any intuition about. Uh, so the location of the IMU has changed and the orientation has changed. So you have to tune the PID parameters for self-balancing again. So there's
Mhm.
something called simple FOC, field oriented control for BLDC motors, but there is a plugin which you can use for. So it's like a library for Arduino, simple FOC, and they have drivers for BLDC motors, and it's more like it's used for controlling BLDC motors, but I think that can also be used with DC motors. It might make things a little bit easier. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, you could check that out. Yeah, simple FOC.
Should I reference either yours or Rafa, um, any branches that you have, or just start
No,
fresh?
just start fresh. I have also forgotten what I was doing. So, but I was able to get my one of the front ends and the tumbler connected so that you could have the PID parameters on screen, and then if you click it, the robot would adjust the PID parameters in its RAM. So
Hmm.
basically, I had like a GUI to like tune the PID parameters on the real robot. So like like in the future it could be so that like a agent has that interface control or the uh, REST API towards that PID parameters. So it was basically I had exposed those PID parameters in RAM via REST API on the Tumblr. So basically, if you send some data to those endpoints, the RAM values would get adjusted,
Hmm.
and then I had just made a front end that would like call those API URLs, and then you could adjust the PID parameters from your screen. I had got until there, but then like yeah, I tried a few times tuning the parameters, but then it would just overshoot. So it would get up and then fall back, but it would like it didn't try to. And then I had some other work, and then that got left away. But that is like one of the uh, like ways. In the future, it should be something like Claude gets access to those APIs, and then there is a camera, or and then it also gets the data of the IMU, and then it should be able to tune the
Hmm.
PID parameters by itself, and then it should be there should be some RL agent that should be able to find the
Yeah,
parameters for the real robot.
Yeah,
that's
it's
what I was.
interesting to. Yeah, sorry, I was gonna say it's interesting to think that, like, if you get the robot sensors to feed back into the loop, so then you might be able to just assign Claude and say, get it to balance type of situation. Like, but you need the sensor feedback in, not just the PID parameters out, right?
Yeah, so yeah, you could also do that. So basically, you need the IMU. So I was also on one of the threads I was like exploring is just I had partly got there. So basically, you stream the IMU values on some with some JSON or some protocol buffers. You just stream it on some with WebSockets. So with WebSockets, you really get like fast connection to the Tumblr. So and then you can like get accurate IMU values. And once like you have the correct IMU values, like Claude gets an idea of what the Tumblr is doing.
Can Claude do that in real time? Or only,
Yeah,
log
I think
files?
there is some at least Codex has this real time WebSocket, so I think Claude should also have it. So because like at least Chat GPT has this real time streaming for audio transcriptions, so it's close enough. And like once the PID parameters are adjusted, you let it fall, right? But the robot has such a configuration that so right now it has like a uh, plate only on one side, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, so it falls off. If it falls off on the other side, it wouldn't be able to get back. So so I had printed a plate exactly like the one you have on one
hmm,
side, and then my plan is to attach it to the other side so the robot never fall like tumbles to the like or like topples on one side, so it always has some support. And
yeah, that
yeah,
could be cool if we standardize that as the kind of startup kit, so you don't even need to know or measure the uh,
mm,
geometry, I guess, of the. I don't know. Can you
yeah,
do that without knowing any of the like weight and the moment arm kind of stuff
you
with
can do
just like
that with like
reinforcement?
trial and error. So I've done that in university courses.
Hmm.
So basically you start with some random values. There is some set of I think some specific set of steps you do to tune it, but I've forgotten it. But yeah, you could try that. Maybe Venkat knows more about it.
No, I think I've forgotten more than you, but I'm also back to zero, maybe. But the thing to
Mhm.
know about anything that does online learning for training a controller's parameters is while it's learning, it's going to have very large transients, which in this case means if it's not robust, it's going to fall over, hit limits, break things and stuff. So just like a bike with training wheels or a kid that's learning to walk, you need padding basically, so it can survive learning fumbles. But yes, there are many adaptive schemes for just learning the parameters of not just PID but any kind of controller. And yeah, if we get a basic PID working in sort of like a flexible way, then we can try more advanced things, and that can be fun.
On Twitter, I've seen some Japanese accounts who do this like self-balancing toy stunts. So one of the guys has been able to do some RL in simulation and then just transfers the parameters on the robot and then basically sim to real transfer for self-balancing. I've seen a few of those videos.
Yeah, that should be possible. This is all pure classical mechanics. So if you model it well enough, simulation should transfer exactly to reality. And I know Eric was doing that in VBots, right? So I don't know how mechanically realistic it is, but if it balances in VBots, I suspect it'll balance in real life, so long as all the geometry and weights are the same.
Yes, so in Weebot, it's I should be able to put out the video pretty quickly, but the video, the demo, but it doesn't work well yet. But I did try. But what I try to do is to have the 3D model to be as close as possible to the real physics. You know where the IMU is placed. On your basically to match the original positions, so that I can plug the original C++ code to control that. Okay. So unfortunately, when I run right now, the thing explodes. Okay. So I need to a bit more work. It looks possible.
There was one more thing I wanted to ask you with this Tumblr platform. I guess in the upright orientation, uh, forward and right, the motors sound like very smooth. Like going forward and turning right, the motors sound very smooth. And then reverse and left, the right motor starts getting like really much louder and kind of like rough sounding. And I haven't really had time to diagnose what that might be yet, but I was curious if you
Can no, but could you switch the motors?
Yeah, if you switch the cabling of the motors, then we could find if it's the PCB problem or something mechanical.
Mm-hmm. If the cables are long enough, if they reach over there.
I think it should be possible.
Yeah. You could also try a simpler test of just disassemble, take the motors apart, and just run the motors straight with a DC power source, both forwards and backwards, and see if there's lubrication problems or something. I think they're standard H-bridge driven motors, right, with some Hall sensors.
Yes, yeah. So they have I think it's a 6-volt DC motor with like Hall encoders.
Yeah, so you can just ignore the Hall lines, and you don't even need an edge bridge probably. If you have a power supply, you can just put positive and negative in, uh, put a max 1 amp or whatever safe limit is, put 6 volts and minus 6 volts through it, and see if it makes a noise on the bench, basically. If so, it's a mechanical problem, right?
Yeah. I don't have a power supply. I'd have to get creative with
Batteries.
batteries or some various like
Well,
wall
you have
plugs
the
that I have for
battery.
other projects.
You have the tumbler battery, right?
Yeah.
So basically, it's directly going to the motors via the H bridge.
Okay.
So it applies the same voltage the battery has to the motor endpoints. But
Oh yeah,
just
so if it doesn't do any regulation or increasing the power, then you can just skip the edge bridge and just connect, use those jumper cables to connect the battery to the motors and test it that way. Yeah, but
We'll
I
see.
think the last time I turned that robot on, I don't remember hearing any problems with the motor. So this might be a new problem or board problem.
We'll see. Yeah, it could be to whatever. The scripts, I think, were might have been modified a little bit, just with like the timeout between motor commands or something like that. So maybe,
So you have
I don't
flashed
know.
the latest Tumblr code, right, to the Arduino,
Yes.
and the PCB is blinking blue when it connects to the Wi-Fi, or when you turn it on, it should blink red. There should be a red blinking LED.
Let me turn it on now.
It should try to connect to the Wi-Fi, and if it's not connecting, it will keep blinking red. And
It's
when it
blue.
connects,
Slow blue.
slow blue. I think it might, because I had some code before which was like a different. I think using different blinking rates of blue to show if it's connected to the Wi-Fi or not.
I think it is connected. This is the state it was
Okay.
in before when I had it connected to the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah. So you have got the IMU sensor readings on your GUI, right? The GUI you made, the user interface you
No,
made. No,
not
you.
yet.
I saw some I2C addresses you were able to get on your graphical user interface.
Yeah, but I don't think I was getting IMU readout on that.
At least the addresses say 44 and 68. So those are the addresses of the temperature sensor and what else is there? The IMU.
Okay.
So the picture you have posted, it has addresses as a JSON file, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so those are the addresses of the temperature sensor and the IMU.
I'm gonna pull it up right now.
Yeah, let's see if in the next 2 weeks I can also do this Bluetooth provisioning, because right now the Wi-Fi credentials are hard coded. So basically, you have this way of provisioning the Wi-Fi credentials via Bluetooth. So it should open up a captcha portal when it begins, and then you just enter your credentials, and then it stores it into its flash memory and writes it. So it could be done. It's like a standard uh, project. Let's see if I can do that in the next 2 weeks. Then, like, we don't have to flash the microcontroller every time the Wi-Fi changes.
Hmm. Can you guys hear the difference?
Not the difference, but we can hear the.
This is just forward, and this is left.
Oh yeah, that doesn't sound good.
And that's one of the motors, I think. I don't know why.
Yeah, you can like do some simple checking of like basic stuff. Like, is there interference? Is the wheel screwed on too tight? Is the wheel maybe grazing against the side of the chassis or something? Like, do the obvious
Yeah.
dumb checks. And if none of that works, then I think the next step is to disassemble and test the motors independently. If still what doesn't work, then you troubleshoot code. And I think troubleshooting something wrong with the PCB is probably the last thing on the troubleshooting tree, because that sounds like the hardest to figure out if that's where something is wrong.
I, I have a somewhat different suggestion. Um, Can you buy new motors? Not now, but in general.
Yeah, so those motors are like standard. You can get the same motors
Then
from
I
AliExpress.
would check the functionality, and if it's able to move in a straight line, forward and backwards, I wouldn't do anything.
That's kind of what
No,
I
and if the
was.
motors go, buy new ones. That's what I'm thinking. It's very easy to check the driver. You just have to switch the plugs of the motors between the connectors, and then you see if it's a board or not. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting too that it's just one direction. Like the same motor sounds fine turning, clockwise, and then counterclockwise it starts making that other noise.
No, no, I
And
understand that. But if you switch the drivers, you can immediately see if that happens with the other motor.
Hmm.
I'm guessing not.
Yeah, this sounds mechanical because it would be weird to have an asymmetry in the code on one motor in one direction. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, but it
No,
could
it
be. I
could
don't know.
be
Maybe
the.
the. But yeah, that's a worthwhile test. It's simple enough. Switch
You
the
know,
connectors and see. But
this is a robot though, so it could be a software issue which is interacting with a mechanical issue. And
yeah, about if there is a problem in the PCB, so like I have got the components for like 10 PCBs. So Jenna has been waiting for I think a few months already to get a PCB, but we haven't reached like the amount of minimum 5 needed in the US. So Jenna is ready to take 2 PCBs, and then like
just
we
send all of
want.
them to me. If you need some upfront
Okay,
cash, I can front it if you need it. Uh,
okay. So
but
I'll
yeah,
order
just order them.
5.
Yeah.
I order 5 for now because I think like if there's somebody from Europe also needing, so I'll order it to my place if there's need, and 5 here and 5 to the US. That's like I think a good distribution.
And to go back to the topic, yes, I know the easy fix is these are cheap motors, so you could just buy a motor and swap it out. But I think the interesting Mars rover type question is on Mars, nothing is cheap, right? So you should have a better strategy for already. If a motor is janky, figure out what's wrong and then use it within its capabilities while it survives, right? That's kind of the scavenging and rough environment solution. So that's kind of interesting to work on as a research problem.
So
It's
you're
good to know
saying
that
that
they're.
we're going to scavenge from other live robots. So if there's another tumbler near you that has a functioning motor, you might steal it.
yeah, I don't think the tumbler has a range to get to the closest tumbler.
The other closest tumbler is probably the other one I have, so it's a few miles away. But
So
I
so
already own one tumbler. I'm not scavenging my other tumbler for that.
I they do it while you sleep, Venkat. But I think that we have another issue here with the protocols. So I know it's not the protocol call, but hear me out. If you're a tumbler and you have a damaged motor, you might invite another tumbler over to dinner to mow the lawn, and it will wake up without a kidney. So
But
it's an issue here of safety for robots in the marketplace. I mean, there's actually two issues. One is that they actually get attacked, and two, that they get a dangerous task. And that's a one off, you know? Nobody comes back from the task. So when we think about the protocols for robots working together, we should also be thinking about abuse of
Yeah,
different types.
that's actually an interesting problem. It's kind of a physical version of the Byzantine kind of problem where you don't know who to trust when you're collaborating. They
Byzantine
might steal your
general.
parts.
Yeah.
But I think some of these scavenging strategies, at least when I was seeing the NASA moon base plan, so they plan to land a lot of stuff and then reuse the material they have landed for different stuff. Uh, Probably the rovers could use some of the stuff that has already been landed on.
It's also interesting to think about that there's probably, if you had a bunch of robots on Mars, like kind of like workshop services. So like both like robots whose only job is to pick up broken robots and take them to the workshop, and like I'm just like kind of thinking about the ecosystem of robots and how you need like the robots doing some tasks, but then the robots picking up the broken ones, then the robots mending them, and yeah, think about that. Kind of like a supply chain of robots that exists, that are servicing each other, not just taking tasks from people on Earth.
So, like I was pointing out, you have to put in the chop chops as well. If a original replacement portion from Earth will take 3 months to arrive and cost a lot, maybe one of these damaged robots didn't get damaged on its own. You have to be very careful when you give them centralized robot repair. It automatically drives distributed, at least, robot, how should we call it, harvesting.
Um, Curious, is in the kind of blockchain spirit, are there any developments beyond like serial numbers for hardware parts where you could trace uh, a part throughout its life cycle as it's moved from one robot to the other? You could see kind of
Yeah.
the history of it.
Yes. I can't remember. I have to look into it, but I know there are blockchain solutions for supply chain traceability that are being used even today, for like source of like fabric and tooling and whatever. And there's kind of like some physical stamping stuff that is related to the parts. Um, and like external checkpoints. I don't know the specifics, but I think the answer to your question is yes. There's individual identity stuff, um, and there's also like something called trusted execution environments. So TEEs, where you can guarantee that the code was written on a specific type of machine with
Hmm.
specific affordances.
So
We,
this is one of the chips I have. I have a breakout board of this chip uh, from Adafruit. It's a I2C based crypto chip. So it basically like creates a private key, and I think it has supports a few algorithms like the ECDSA and others. And it's basically not possible for you to extract uh, the key inside. So even the CPU, for example, the Tumblr ESP32 wouldn't see the key here, but it can ask for a signature from this chip via I2C.
Hmm.
So basically, if you kind of have a package which it's, unless you are like physically tampering with the like component itself and trying to extract this chip, if the chip remains on the robot or the component part, then you know that it's like a legit component. So I've been wanting to experiment. I did a small code, but yeah, it didn't work, and then I didn't have time to proceed further on this. But this is like the goal. Like so, one of the other robots I have, the Robomates, it already has this chip on its PCB. So I wanted to put this chip on the tumbler hat, but then like yeah, I had already given it
uh,
for manufacturing. But like the goal is to have a similar chip on the tumbler hat itself.
we in the past had discussions about modular components being registered themselves on blockchain, and but we were worried about the opposite problem, that a robot buys a component and gets the wrong one, or while the robot was sleeping, somebody came by and took off a few pieces and replaced them.
Hmm.
And we talked about the robot operating system on startup, checking both the software modules and the hardware modules to see that they all match, a signature. So I'm just wondering if we could expand it in the other direction. There could be reliable robots and unreliable robots, and reliable ones are able to expose their signature, generate a signature that they don't have control over, maybe using a chip like Anurag said, and expose it. And then other robots can know, at least if the robot they're talking to has, I don't know, let's call it illegally unregistered scavenged parts. So if a robot found a dead robot and took a wheel and a motor and reports it, that makes it more reliable than a robot that didn't report it and maybe
So
stole it.
yeah, on the same lines, one of the ideas I had for the identity layer was like you generating a signature and then storing it as a storing the public key as a metadata on the NFT that is minted by the 8004 registry. So basically, and then pin it on Pinata. So then kind of like the components. So you could have all this information on the metadata NFT. That is like one way to do it.
I like this. This is a interesting line of thinking. Rafa says trashed robots seem like a fun experiment. And I'm kind of thinking about uh, like a practical proving ground of this where we have like three classes of robot with uh, potentially interchangeable parts. And in order to achieve some objective, they have to enter the challenge individually and then at some point combine and swap parts into a new configuration like Mighty Morphin, the Power Rangers, like adding all together so that they can accomplish something that they aren't able to individually.
So, an interesting thought here is if the assembly structure of a robot is a tree, then you could actually have an identifier like a key pair or something with each component and then create like a Merkle tree out of it. And then you could actually detect if there was scavenging. I don't quite know how you'd have a verifiable Merkle tree construction out of it. But that way, yeah, a single hash could actually represent the integrity of the whole assembly. But I think there'd be constraints on it. But this seems like kind of an obvious thing to try. So I wonder if somebody's already tried it.
Yeah, the way that you can do that is with recursive proofs as well. So when you have zero knowledge proofs, you can have each piece of your robot as well as like combination of pieces to basically submit a proof that they're actually working, and then you can kind of like roll them up into a single mathematical proof, and then you can kind of like prove your robot is like in good condition. I'm not speculating here, but you can probably use what's already done in ZK proofs world. Like this is like it's like a solved problem. The
Yeah.
roll up verification is a solved problem, and it means that your proof is extremely small, right? Like it's basically a single hash.
Yeah. So I was trying to get some stamping done with KZG proofs on the RPI for the sensors, but yeah, it's a work in progress. Not there yet. And there's basically you could like stamp that uh, also on the metadata. like have this proof on the metadata of the blockchain. We are 2 minutes past. Anything more we want to discuss? Mayor, let's try to register your robot maybe in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, then. We meet each other in 2 weeks.
Okay.
See everybody.
See you guys.
Thank
Bye.
Hey
you.
guys.
Night.
Bye.
Good day.